The first stage of breathing practice is to count the breath. The thrust of this stage of breathing is that at the beginning of practice, our mind is not so easy to focus upon breathing. Therefore, by means of counting, we force our attention to numbers, and furthermore, to the varying parts of each round of breathing that match the number. In this way, we can discipline our attention to follow the breathing eventually. As explained, there are 3 parts for each round of breathing, and therefore we need a number which multiplies 3 to count the varying parts of our breath. I suggest we use 9. So, when we breathe in, deeply, slowly, and follow all the major points of Ru breathing explained above, we count 1. When we exhale, slowly, naturally, and even in a more relaxed way, we count 2. After that, for the short pause before next inhale, we count 3. After this, 4 for inhale, 5 for exhale, and 6 for the pause. Again 7 for inhale, 8 for exhale, and 9 for the pause. After finishing this round of counting 9, we restart to count from 1 to 9, again, and again. Why do we need to count by 9? If we make a too big number, we will probably lose our attention, become a little bit absent-minded, or even sleepy if one round of counting takes too long a time. However, if we make a too small number, the force upon our attention is not strong enough. Accordingly, we cannot sufficiently focus our attention upon breathing either. Of course, if you feel comfortable, you can surely count by 6. After all these rules are explained about Ru breathing are heuristic, explorative, and practical. You can make your own adjustment following those general rules. On the other hand, since we are talking about Ru meditation, we can even use verses in Ru classics to count our breathing, to replace the numbers. For instance, we can turn the first several verses of the text stay centered in the everyday world, or centrality and commonality in Chinese, 中庸, into a mantra, and then use this 9-character mantra to count our breath. And the mantra is 天命系率性道修道教. Let me say it again. 天命系率性道修道教. So 天 is inhale, 命 is exhale, and 性 is the short pause. Then we just continue and repeat the mantra. The meaning of these 9 characters is that what is endowed by the universe is called human nature. The way for human living is to manifest this endowed nature, and to cultivate this way is called education. We will mention this Ruist philosophy of humans vis-à-vis the universe in the future's podcast in more detail. However, for beginning practitioners, if you find it difficult to pronounce silently these characters during breathing. It will be fine and work equally well, while we just count our breath using numbers. While practicing counting your breath, one big challenge for beginning practitioners is that even forcing their thought upon the numbering process, their mind is still easy to get distracted by their random thoughts. When this happens, make sure yourself just to return to the count. Do not need to be distracted by your distraction. Regardless of what happens, whenever you realize you have been distracted, just go back to the method. This is how we deepen our practice, and nothing needs to be stressful during the process. The second stage of Ru breathing is to follow the breath. After you practice counting breath for a certain amount of time, your breath will have become slower and deeper than normal. Now, it would be relatively easy for you to continue focusing upon your breath, even if you do not count it anymore. In this case, you can just have your attention follow your breath, in the sense that you would not need to use counting as an intermediary method to help focusing. In other words, you can focus your attention directly upon your breath. This is what I mean by follow the breath. While following your breath, you are aware of the three necessary components of each round of breathing. Because your attention is already strong enough to remain close to the entire itinerary where your breath comes in and goes out. During the stage of following breath, you can start to use another method of contemplation to deepen your practice in order to reach another stage of Ru breathing. You can contemplate the varying parts of your body through which the breathed air flows, and the varying parts of your environment out of which the breathed air originates and circulates. In each round of breathing, when we inhale, we contemplate one part of our body. This is how we contemplate our body while following our breath. We can start from the tip of our nose. Inhale, and feel how air is breathed in, its temperature, and its delicacy. Then, in the next inhale, let's contemplate our throat, its importance, its fatigue, and how the breathed air can bring energy to it. Then we can contemplate our chest cavity, the abdominal cavity, our arms, legs, feet, back, neck, head, etc. When we contemplate our body, we can also try to contract the muscles in varying parts of our body, one by another, and then release them, so as to feel the ease, comfort, and relaxation that gradually pervade our body. We also need to remind us of the significance of each part of our body when we contemplate them. Western culture and philosophy in general is very much logic and intellect-centric. So contemplating how air energizes and restores varying parts of our body so as to achieve the unity of mind and body would be a good practice to complement what this Western mindset lacks. Similarly, after finishing contemplating our body, we can start to contemplate our outside environment. The method would be similar. In each round of breathing, when inhaling, we contemplate one part of that environment. We can start from the place where you are practicing, your chair, the clock, your laptop, the furniture, varying rooms in one building, your family, friends, your workplace, the city, your favorite park, your country, the earth, and eventually the entire universe. While contemplating them and inhaling the air, our feelings would be to care, to remain attentive, and to be grateful. Stripped of each such component of our outside environment, our life cannot barely find its position. Therefore, keeping attentive to these details in our environment and reminding us the intimate position we obtain in the entire universe are really the precondition for us to improve our environment and improve our life. The third stage of Ru breathing is to settle the breath. After practicing counting and following the breath for a sufficient amount of time, during the practice, our mind would feel calmer and calmer. Our body feels more and more relaxed, and the breathed air is even more delicate, slow, and pervasive. When we continue to do so, at a certain point, our metabolic system will pass a threshold so that we will only need a minimal input of oxygen to be able to maintain the well-functioning of the entire body. Once passing this energy threshold, we will not feel an immediate need to inhale when we finish the last round of exhaling. In this case, the short pause between the last exhale and the next inhale will be extended for an unusually long period of time. Since our body right now does not need an immediate input of oxygen, even if we suspend our breath in this third part of our breathing for a while, we would not feel any discomfort. Instead, since we have already stored enough energy in our body, we would feel a joy and comfort even if we temporarily suspend our breath. At this moment, if we continue to practice breathing according to the above method, and thus to continue extending the length of the pause in between, according to my own experience, our breath will undergo subsequently 2 states in this third stage of Ru breathing, the stage of settling our breath. You can also understand these 2 subsequent states as 2 signs, which tells you our breathing already steps into the third stage. Firstly, since the pause after exhale is extended, the time for one next inhale is also extended to an unusually long length of time. It is not beyond expectation that the breathing pace becomes extremely slow at this stage, since we need a smaller input of oxygen to maintain the basic function of our body. However, since the breathing becomes much slower, the adoption and the carrying through of those oxygen molecules in our body would also become more efficient. The process of oxygenation will pervade those cells of our body that are not so easy to be reached in the normal circumstances of breathing. Because of this, we will have a deep feeling of healing when we realize this extremely slow, delicate, and efficient pattern of inhale. Secondly, when we continue to accumulate our experience of this extended, healing inhale, the stage of settling breath will enter its second state. That is, when our breath is naturally, joyfully, and effortlessly suspended between the last exhale and the next inhale. We only need to inhale a little bit slice of air, and then, after even unnoticeably exhaling it, we can still stay in the same state of suspension, and thus prolong the time of the in-between pause. In other words, at this moment, we need a minimal amount of energy input to maintain an optimal function of life. At this moment, our feelings towards our own body, our heart-mind, and the environment will be dramatically different from ordinary ones. And our consciousness will also become extremely mindful, sensitive, translucent, and all-pervasive. Good, let's summarize what we have talked about, the third stage of meditative breathing. After we continually practice counting and following our breath, if in a natural and relaxed way, we can obviously and extraordinarily extend the length of one inhale and the length of the in-between pause. We are entering the stage of settling the breath. In this stage, our experience is extremely joyful and comfortable, and it is also deeply healing. This is because we continually rely upon a minimal amount of energy input to maintain an optimal function of human body, while we can also simultaneously keep a peaceful, harmonious, and symbiotic relationship with our environment. In scientific terms, our life achieves a certain state of energy equilibrium at this stage, and in Ruist terms, the state can be called centrality. It is also the state of a harmonious unity between our body, our heart-mind, the air, and our outside environment, which we mentioned before. Once we experience the third stage of meditative breathing, the goal of Ru breathing is realized. From the perspective of Ruist spirituality, nothing is more important than being able to deal with real issues in the human world. The described breathing process, featured by a final settling stage of breath, can re-energize ourselves quickly and effectively during our busy daily life. Our heart-mind is fuller of love, more humane, and our mind is also more aware and mindful. With all these benefits of the practice in hand, we will have a good foundation to deal with the real-life issues in the world. In other words, the goal of the practice of Ru breathing is to have us rediscover and maintain the pattern of settling breath so as to constantly get back the optimal function of our body. with the further result of more effectively engaging our daily life. But how long a time do we need to reach the stage of settling breath from when we start our practice? According to my practicing and teaching experience, if we continue to practice breathing according to the aforementioned method, we practice about 10 to 15 minutes for at least 3 times a day. Especially, we practice it during our daytime nap or before we get to sleep at night. Then, using about half a month, most of people can reach the 3rd stage of settling breath. However, the state of settling breath results from a combined effort of humans and nature. We provide our discipline to rediscover an inherent pattern of optimal breathing. Because of this, we cannot demand or predict exactly when the settling breath can take place. So let my tone be a little bit reserved. We can trustfully say, as long as we continue a daily practice of rule breathing, we can always feel the benefits of it in time. When our breath reaches its ideal state of settlement, there is a supplementary discipline that we can work on. That is, we can try to deliberately extend the length of one inhale, and the best time to do this is before sleeping. The method to do it will be like this. Before sleeping, everything is quieted. We have no further business to worry or even think about. We can start to practice breathing according to the above method, while feeling the obvious extension of the in-between pause, hence entering the stage of settling breath. We can use a bit more effort to extend the time of our inhale. Since we use our belly muscles during the practice, we can do it in this way. We inhale slowly and delicately, just like we normally do during our breathing practice. However, at this stage of settling breath, we can inhale, following the movement of our belly. When our belly rises a little bit, we breathe in a little bit more, and then hold it for a short while. Observe the belly continues to rise. When the belly continues to rise a little bit further, then we will breathe in another little bit more of air. Since our breathing already reaches the stage of settlement, a little bit more of oxygen input will be sufficient to maintain the function of our body. And since we deliberately slow down the breathing, the adoption of oxygen by our body also becomes more delicate and efficient. However, since the time for inhale is prolonged, the accumulated carbon dioxide will need to be exhaled after this prolonged inhale. Therefore, if you would like to use your mouth to exhale during this practice, that will be perfectly fine. In a word, the 3rd stage of rule breathing can be supplemented by this practice of deliberately prolonging our inhale. Since this is supplemental rather than essential, you can decide whether to practice it or not. For me, I do sometimes practice it, but not too harsh or restrictive on myself. I normally practice during day naps or night sleeps, and the experience is very comforting and re-energizing. Before concluding my explanation of the method of Ru breathing, I will announce that for the purpose of Ru meditation, postures during meditative breathing are less important than the discipline of breathing itself. However, one very important aspect for Ru meditation is that we can achieve and maintain the state of energy equilibrium, or the one of centrality, in varying postures, so that we can be in a consistent meditative mode, no matter we are still, moving, or dealing with the real issues in the human world. In the future, I will make audios to explain varying postures of Ru meditation, starting from its still form, such as a quiet sitting, gradually to its moving forms, such as walking and martial arts. I will use 6 sentences to summarize and conclude the 3 key points and the 3 major stages of Ru breathing for Ru meditation. Point 1. Breathe using belly. Point 2. Feel the pulse before inhale. Point 3. Attend to the breath for the unity between body, heart, mind, and environment. Stage 1. Count the breath to focus. Stage 2. Follow the breath to contemplate the body and the environment. Stage 3. Settle the breath to stay centered in the everyday world.